and putting a case to the ICC. It's really a privilege to have worked on this, and coming to these events where I receive such a warm welcome makes all the hard work worth it. So thank you very much.
Hôm nay con trong chuyện thay con miền cả xoay đi đểบอกโอนสวากุมก่อนแต่ก็ได้มาชิมเซ่ก็มันเต้นได้ก่อนมันจังหวะทุกคนถ้าชีวิตได้ตลอดได้มันใจเอาไว้ได้ก่อนทุกก็สลายก็โดยเฉพาะมีจุดนาตรอมนั่นห้องเตะมาเยอะบ้างไอ้ยังมันจังบอกอยู่ได้ดำเนินประกาศบอกสายคลองซา ICC ได้มาดองมาจนทุกที่เสียเลย
The results of all this exploitation have been disastrous for your country. Millions of hectares of land have been illegally grabbed and distributed amongst the ruling elite. Your beautiful ancient forests have been felled, your fertile rivers have been dammed and polluted. And of course, thousands upon thousands of people have been forcibly evicted from their land, and all this has caused increasing social unrest as we see week in, week out, as communities try to protect themselves from the greed of the ruling elite.
คำสาได้ก็ทำบอกสายของเป็นนี่คือสังเกตเห็นทางใต้ได้รวมเลี้ยนเหตุการณ์บางในกรมรวมมือรวมนี้เรารวมเลี้ยนเหตุการณ์ในไตรบานคิดเสียคือมันไตรมีหนุนนายนักตะงองของกองก็คือรวมโลกโยกตอนความคิดเสียปัญญาในเรื่องที่อันนี้การบังคับความบอกโอนใหม่ยังเลยจุดรวมรวมบ้างจึงอ๋อนี่คือคลายโดยที่ปัญหาจราจรของสังคมใหม่เยอะแต่วิธีในการพาปะปอและที่เสียคือคิดเรื่องกิจกรรมของใดบ้าง
It's estimated that now 1% of the Cambodian population own 20 to 30% of the land area, and meanwhile, in the countryside, 1/5 of people are now completely landless. And you probably remember the time when everybody had some land to survive. The victims of this kleptocratic system are not just the ordinary Cambodians of today. They are, of course, the future generations of Cambodians. And unless something is done to stop this pillage of resources, your children, your grandchildren will inherit Cambodia, where most of the valuable resources have already been stolen.
ว่าเราเป็นบางประมาณเจ็ดชั้นมันได้เติร์เชียร์ตัวรอดได้ยืดสเกตที่ยังไปจงกรายนี่คือปฏิได้ปีของไทยจะ30%นั่นตัวบ้านการกลับโดยมันจะมีลำนายแต่มวยพิโรยที่ขณะไปได้ในระบอบที่จนระบอบนี่นั่นคือหาชิ้นมวยเพียบปรางในจุดรอดนั่นตัวบ้านมีได้ดีมีเตี้ยสบายในตัวรองครูทางบ้านจังเอาไว้เด็กตอนสเกตเคยยึดกันการมาเพียบจังอ่อนนี่ควรตัวบ้านมันชกว่ามันจะได้อาจมีมันการจราจรตัวท่าเนี่ยเราพอกับอ้อนมันเป็นเรื่องทางชีวรสธรรมดาในขึ้นเจียนอนาคตเราต้องชีวรสอนาคตเราบอกจะเชียร์ยืนของนายกัน
And as we know from your excellent NGOs who monitor the human rights violations in Cambodia, there has been about 145,000 people have been evicted from Phnom Penh alone. That's about 10% of the people of the capital city, and nationwide it's estimated that there are 770,000 people that have been adversely affected so far by the land grabbing. That's about 6% of your population. Not all of those have been thrown off their land yet, but those who haven't are awaiting the same fate. So it's really an enormous number of victims so far.
ว่าในการระบายการที่องค์การสังคมซิวิลโดยเฉพาะองค์การมันแม้รัฐบาลนั่นคือกฎมีบัญชีที่ระบายการฮะที่รอดอย่างเขานั้น10%คือตะบูนเมื่อปรามปอนเนี่ยนั่นน้อง នៅក្នុងទីក្រុងភ្នំពេញតែមួយគត់គឺប្រហែល10%នៃប្រជាពលរដ្ឋនៅក្នុងទីក្រុងទាំងមូលត្រូវបានជម្លៀសហើយបើគិតនៅក្នុងប្រទេសទាំងមូលគឺមានដល់77,000 នាក់7 million នាក់បាទនិយាយទៅហើយទាំងអស់នោះបើគិតទៅប្រហែលជា6%នៃប្រជាជនសរុបនៅក្នុងប្រទេសកម្ពុជាយើងដែលត្រូវបានជម្លៀសហើយក្នុងនោះជាពលរដ្ឋខ្លះដែលគាត់មិនទាន់បានរងគ្រោះប៉ុន្តែនឹងប្រឈមនឹងជួបវាសនាដូចគ្នានោះក៏អាចនឹងប្រឈមនឹងបញ្ហាជម្លៀសដីធ្លីនឹងផងដែរបាទ
And just to give you a sense of scale, imagine that 6% of the population of the United States had been affected by land grabbing. I had a quick look in Wikipedia and added up the figures from several states, and it would amount to the entire populations of Connecticut, of Maine, of Massachusetts, of New Hampshire, of Rhode Island, of Vermont, of Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, and Hawaii, all put together. That is 6% of the population of the United States. I cheated slightly because I chose the states with the smallest figures to give the greatest effect, but you get the point. Affecting that number of people in a country like the US would be unthinkable. And what we must argue is that poor Cambodians deserve the same level of protection.
បាទអ្វីដែលគាត់ចង់ប្រៀបធៀបនឹងចង់បង្ហាញថាទូរលេខដែលគិតថា6% នៃប្រជាពលរដ្ឋខ្មែរដែលត្រូវបានរងផលប៉ះពាល់ដែលយើងលើកឡើងនេះគឺ77,000 នាក់ហ្នឹងគឺបើប្រៀបធៀបទៅវាស្មើនឹងប្រជាពលរដ្ឋនៅតាមបណ្ដារដ្ឋដែលគាត់លើកឡើងអំបញ្ញនេះដូចជា Maine, Rhode Island ហើយនិង Idaho ប្រមាណរដ្ឋផ្សេងៗទៀតដែលគាត់បូកចូលគ្នាគឺប្រហែលនឹងប្រជាពលរដ្ឋនឹងបូកចូលគ្នាអញ្ចឹងចំនួននេះបើនៅក្នុងសហរដ្ឋអាមេរិកគឺជាចំនួនមួយដ៏ធំហើយគ្មានអាណាចក្រស្មើដល់ថាវាអាចនឹងមានផលប៉ះពាល់ដូចនេះទេបាទអញ្ចឹងទាំងអស់នេះគួរត្រូវបានទទួលការការពារនិងការយកចិត្តទុកដាក់ពីការជំនាញដោយខំបាទ
So I was asked initially by human rights defenders to investigate the shootings by Cambodian gendarmes on the 3rd of January last year. And what I realized when I went to Cambodia is that those shootings were actually just a small part of a much bigger picture of human rights violations. And whether we're talking about the forcible evictions of poor families or the assassination of environmental activists or the illegal imprisonment of opposition politicians, it's all part and parcel of the same policy of the ruling elite. បាទដោយការបានជាក់ដំបូងឡើយគាត់ត្រូវបានគេអញ្ជើញក្នុងនាមអង្គការសង្គមស៊ីវិលមួយចំនួនហ្នឹងគឺត្រូវការស៊ើបអង្កេតនៅការបាញ់សម្លាប់កាលពីថ្ងៃទី 3 ខែមករាឆ្នាំ 2014 កន្លងទៅប៉ុន្តែនៅពេលដែលគាត់ទៅដល់ធ្វើដំណើរទៅនោះគាត់ឃើញថាតាមពិតការបាញ់សម្លាប់រង្គាលហ្នឹងវាជាផ្នែកតូចមួយបើសិនជាមើលរូបភាពធំនៅក្នុងផ្ទៃប្រទេសទាំងមូលគឺការជំនះដោយបង្ខំហ្នឹងគឺជាបញ្ហាដើមចងធំជាងអ្វីដែលគាត់ត្រូវបានគេអញ្ជើញជាលើកដំបូងនោះបាទអញ្ចឹងកិច្ចការទាំងអស់នេះវាអាចទៅជាបទអក្រិតបានបាទ And that policy, as you well know, is implemented by state actors, often by the police, the gendarmes, the military. It's rubber stamped by a corrupt judicial system, and it has two main aims. The first aim is the self-enrichment of the ruling elite. They grab all the resources to make themselves incredibly wealthy. And the second aim is to maintain power at all costs, including through the violent suppression of dissidents. បាទដោយការបានបញ្ជាក់មកអញ្ចឹងតាមពិតទៅវាមានពីរករណីនៃការអនុវត្តគោលនយោបាយអស់ហ្នឹងដែលដោយមន្ត្រីដែលកាន់អំណាចជាពិសេសមន្ត្រីដែលពុករលួយហ្នឹងទី1គឺដើម្បីភាពមានបានរបស់ខ្លួនសម្រាប់ថ្នាក់ដឹកនាំទី2គឺដើម្បីពង្រឹងអំណាចនៅក្នុងគ្រប់កលៈទេសៈមិនខ្វល់ពីការបាត់បង់ឬការអ្វីទាំងអស់ដូចជាករណីការបង្ក្រាបដោយបង្ខំដោយហិង្សាទាំងអស់នេះគឺជាឧទាហរណ៍មួយក្នុងចំណោមឧទាហរណ៍ជាច្រើនដែល